Manchester United just got Simeoned. Good or bad thing? Let's talk about it. Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at JessieKnowTweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're doing a match preview for our game against Liverpool. It feels weird having a game so quickly after the last because for the longest, it's kind of been like game, 2 weeks off, game, 2 weeks off, game, 2 weeks off. So having a game come so like quickly and a big game like this, it's like, whew, but we're going to do our typical match preview, talking about lineups, predictions. How do we solve issues in a game that we've seen 3 times already this season? We have played Liverpool 3 times already, and we have to play them for the last time this time around. How can we get a different result? How can we get something out of this game? I don't want to put it out there, but it's kind of a free hit. And so we don't have to get anything from it, but it would be nice, right? It would be nice to actually get something from a game against Liverpool and maybe score a goal. Hello, that'd be nice, right? So we'll talk about it. But first, I want to talk about how Man United getting dumped out of the Champions League, how that can affect them moving forward and inevitably the title race, right? So, not the title race. We're not in the title race. Maybe next year. No, I'm joking. But not the title race, but the top 4 race, because there seems to be like a different schools of thought here. Some of the fan base are like, okay, well, we want them to stay in so they have something else to focus on. I kind of don't care. I kind of don't care. So we'll talk about it, but I'm going to go ahead and bring Souls in and we'll kind of just start off with that. Souls, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. So just kind of easing on into the conversation. Man United get dumped out of the Champions League. They got Simeoned. It's once they get that goal, it's kind of like, ooh, how are you gonna overturn this? Simeone and Atletico are so good at this competition. They're so good at whatever this is. I don't know what to call it. I'm calling it Simeone, but they're so good at it. It's the dark arts. It's the wasting time. It's the being clinical, getting one chance, going away from home, keeping it close, and going home victors. So I think Man United did get Simeone, but do you feel like it would have been better for them to stay in that competition a little bit longer so that, maybe they could be focusing on something else? Or how do you feel about that? Do you worry about that at all?
Well, one of my things is time will tell point, and that is whether these guys are losing hope in United. And who I mean is like Varane, for example, or Ronaldo, or maybe even Bruno, in terms of they don't see where the progression is, I know people hate the word, but what the project is or what the process is to getting back to, because for them, especially being like Bruno being 28, Ronaldo pretty much being on his last legs at this time, Varane is not young, he's about 28, 29 in the prime years of his career. They could be thinking, what's the point of us being here? And that could mean them not being in the Champions League is a good thing for us. But then it could also just motivate them to bring United back into the Champions League, and that can have the adverse effect of actually they're more hungry, they're finally playing as a team. And my other thing is, I always think, when you're going into a quarterfinal, especially United, someone who's not won, a trophy in what's it, 4 seasons, 5 seasons, if I'm not mistaken, and the pressure's building. Like, I'm not saying it's important for them to win like a Carabao Cup, but the longer you go without winning anything, especially fans like like even Arsenal, United, Liverpool, City, they're gonna demand something. They're gonna be like, well, where's our trophy? So the demand would be put the pressure on them to focus on the Champions League, but now they've got nothing to focus on but the Prem. But then their quality is not good, so it's a bit of a we don't know. Like I think for me, it's just worry about ourselves. Just do what we need to do, and then it doesn't really matter what United are doing. So I'm like in the middle. I'm like I would have liked to just because then they'd have something to focus on. But again, mentality is everything. What if these players have just like this is just shit? Like what are we doing here? So that could also happen. So it's one of those. I think time will tell whether it affects. It shouldn't because it just shouldn't matter what United are doing because we should believe in what we're doing and what we're doing is moving forward. And yeah, that I'm a bit like I don't really know. I don't really care. But at the same time, I would have liked them to stay in it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. Until they're playing, I really don't care what our rivals are doing, to be quite honest, because I'm very hyper focused on us. Because if we're not playing well, it doesn't matter. But that being said, I really am just kind of like, I'm not sure that I believe Man United's issue is that they're playing so many games and they have a small squad that's having a difficult time focusing and churning out results in a difficult, circumstances because they're playing so many games at a time. It's more they're just not very good and they don't have a good mentality. And I think they're more of their issue is that Brannick is there. He's not the real coach. They're not really buying into his ideas. It's a bunch of individuals. And I feel like whether playing 3 games in a week or one, those issues are going to exist. So it doesn't really matter to me, you know what I mean? I think the team that I would say that situation, wanting them to stay in a competition longer, I feel like that is more West Ham for me because they're the team that's kind of like small squad, could get stretched, playing decent, like they keep churning out results, but if they continue in the Europa League as the season goes on, they may just kind of capitulate because it's too much for such a small squad that's not used to really being in Europe. I don't think that really is goes with Man United. I think it's a different situation. Nevertheless, Man United, I love watching you lose. It's so funny. I mean, I cannot lie, like the the freaking Bruno Fernandes show that was on display today, like, and it crescendoed with him sitting on the bench and looking like he was about to cry. I loved it. Like, it was so funny. And I know that they're going to feel like they've been treated unfairly because maybe the referee didn't give them the calls that they deserve. But just a couple weeks ago, when Arsenal fans were feeling like they weren't getting the calls, I was told that we were always whining slash whinging about everything. So I can't say that I feel that bad, but wasn't the Bruno show just so funny today? I mean, this was peak Bruno, wasn't it?
I don't like you know my thoughts on Bruno. I think he's so overrated. He's unbelievably overrated. I think he is one of the most overrated Premier League players in my opinion. Yes, and I've always said it. I've accredited him for his goal scoring ability, and I think yeah he's very good at that, or was very good at that, should I say? But it masked over his performances. Now the reason I say that is let's just take a modern example. Let's take Odegaard in recent time. No goals or assists to show for everything he's well, not consistent goals or assists, should I say. But if Odegaard's not there, the football doesn't work the same. But what does Bruno offer as a number 10 or a creative? Well, he's meant to be a creative midfielder. And that's why I just love it. I'm like, you know what? It's funny because this is what I've been telling you. If you take the goals, and I know people say, but you should, but scoring goals is part of the game, blah, blah. But I'm like, if you take it away, you'll realize he does nothing for 90 minutes. He's really just ineffective. You can do, that's part of United's problem and part of their problems with their system and everything. And when he was sulking, I was like, you know what? This is just like we get blamed for whinging at referees, but your own player, the man that you've put a lot of trust in, is doing exactly what we do. But we're fans, so we're meant to be whining. That's part of being a fan. But being a footballer, like to whine this much, God, it's lovely. I don't. The thing is with United, like some fans, I'm fine with, but their fan base are on. I don't know. They say we're unbearable, but my God, they play the victim when everything's going for them. So I can't feel sorry for them. I love it because it's like this is how we feel every time we watch you. You get so like Bruno got a penalty for stepping on someone, I still can't get over that. Like that for me was just. I was
Martial
like,
also got one as well.
yeah, and I
I
was like,
seen
you
Martial do the
stepped on the
same thing.
defender,
Yeah, exactly. I know
and I was like,
exactly what you're talking about.
and
Yeah.
I'm like, so the thing is, I know it's one, I'm giving one, but there's multiple scenarios we can give similar to this where I'm just like, the rules that have been like so enforced, like they got a penalty. I know it's something that was in the game, but they got a penalty after the final whistle blew against, was it Brighton, to make it 3-2. The things I've just never seen United have been given, and I'm like, I don't know why you're whinging. It's like this is what happens every week to use. So yeah, I loved it. I don't care. Like, I'm glad they went out the way they did because it's like
Yeah.
poetic justice, isn't it?
And one thing is like I'm not sure that they have the spirit and collective nature or the unity in the squad, and really just like the effort levels to um really fight in a top 4 race that's going to be very difficult into the end of the season. You still have Spurs, you have West Ham, Wolves are not that far behind, and I'm just not sure that with Champions League off the table now that some players are going to be like, yeah, let's fight for top 4 now. I could easily see them just kind of like doing just the bare minimum, not fighting for it because they're going to have to. They still have to play Liverpool, they still have to play us, so it's going to be difficult for them, but it's still not over until it's over. Before we get off of the United Atletico game, I do want to touch on Joao Felix, a player that we've been linked to, that every time I watch him play, I'm just like, if you put him anywhere near Odegaard, we're cooking. Like, I thought that he looked really good today. And obviously, when you play for Atletico, you it feels like attacking players almost suffer a little bit because of the way Simeone wants to play. But he still was able to add his little bit of flair. He was involved in the goal that Renan Lodi scored. And the funny thing is that in the other Champions League game, Darwin Nunez was the player that got Benfica over the line against Ajax. So these are two players that we've been linked to, two completely different players. But watching Joao Felix today, is that the player that we should be going after? He can be resolute, he can play in a deeper block and be more than just a creative player, right? Is he the player you would go after this summer?
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of the question from the fan base is the price tag, and for me, I think 70, 80 million will do the job. And if you think about it, we were willing to pay that for Vlahovic, so why not get someone who's probably on the same talent level currently as a Vlahovic? The only reason people rate Vlahovic a lot higher is because the output's there. But there isn't really an Atletico team, or well, under Simeone anyway, that attackers get loads of output, but they're efficient with what they get. And that's one of the keys for me is not only can he play the deep role and be a creative, like we've seen it today, the link up, it was like he was playing a number 10 in terms of how he got the ball through to Griezmann for the cross. And that's a little added touch of flair that maybe we're seeing with Lacazette, but the difference is Felix has got the legs to then drive into the box. And that's something we're missing with Lacazette. I'm not saying Lacazette's been bad or he's horrible or whatever, but he just doesn't have the legs to then make that pass and drive into the box to be involved in all phases of the attack. And even when you look at Felix, because he's playing in these low blocks, he knows he must have the legs to be able to go deep, make the play happen whilst following the attack. So, and that's one of the sort of positives to it all. And even if we need to close a game out, he'll know what to do. If we need to attack a game, he'll know what to do. And to be honest, he's a well-rounded talent in terms of his heading ability is not bad for a short person, and he's got flair, trickery, and I think when you look at the way we attack and the flair that we've got and the pace that we play with, you've got Odegaard who's creating anyway, and then it seems like we're going for another attacking eight. So he's going to have enough people to create for him. And for me, a lot of people looking his output, again, I say just ignore that because that's in Atletico Madrid. But if you look at his output in Benfica, it was actually quite good. So for me, 100%. I mean, I'd say 80 million would be my cutoff. After that, I'd be like, okay, you're demanding a bit too
Yeah.
much, and I am somewhat of a you've got to have a cut off. You don't want to just overspend on everything. So I say like 80 million should do the job, and that's about how much we're looking to spend on a strike. Well, if we're looking at Isak, for example, his was 75 million. We just didn't want to do it for him, but we're willing to go up to at least 50 million.
And also,
Vlahovic,
when you pay the release clause, you have to pay it all up front.
yeah,
So that's not really ideal if you have to pay it all up front. We're going to want to pay in like hella installments, right?
yeah. So I think if you look at it, Vlahovic was 75 million. So and that bid got accepted. It was
This
just
is water, you
Juventus,
guys.
yeah, and Juventus came in for him when he wanted to go Juventus. That's the only reason we didn't get him. So in my head, I'm looking at, okay, we've got a budget around 70 to 80 million if we're going off of the rumors or the transfers we looked at. So it should be enough to get the job done. And for me, I don't, because I always look at who else is there, what are the alternatives, and how good are those
Mhm.
alternatives. And for me, it's like you may as well go for the best. If you can't get that, then you go for the close second. But I don't see why we can't get Felix if we get Champions League football.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm looking at his numbers now. Last season was probably not that good of a season for him. He scored 7 goals and had 5 assists in 31 games. Right now, he has 20 matches under his belt and he has 6 goals and 3 assists. And he also has a goal in the Champions League. So he is on track to do a better job than he did the season prior. So we'll wait and see, but I think getting somebody like him and another type of striker that can be more of a target man might be the right type of spread that we'll need. But we have tons of time to talk about that. Now, moving on to the Liverpool game, I saw that somebody in the chat box had said that there's a rumor out there that Gabriel did not train. That was coming from Tiki Taka Connor. But he also prefaced everything by saying, well, remember, his wife slash girlfriend, whatever, has is 9 months pregnant and could potentially have went into labor. And last week or during our last game, he also put out some cryptic kind of, and this is no shade to him. I know what the game is all about, but it's kind of like a cryptic tweet, kind of to make us feel a little bit more like the player might be out, and then it's just something normal. Like Aaron Ramsdale didn't train, but it ended up being because of sponsorship duties. So I'm not going to freak out about it just yet. But if Gabriel were not to play tomorrow because he was out, what is the solution there? I mean, if Tomiyasu is not 100%, I guess the obvious answer is Holding at left center back. What do you think?
I hope he's there, because otherwise we're getting. I mean, look, we're probably going to get slaughtered either way. But I just think you know what it is? I just want to play with our 11. I just want to see what our 11 can do against Liverpool. Because even in the Carabao Cup, we didn't have our midfield. There seems to always, for us anyway, there's always but we're missing this. Oh, but we're missing. I just want to see Gabriel there, just so we can see 11 on 11, how far are we? Or
Mm.
how close are we even, depending on how it goes. Because there's no excuse for Liverpool to not try and win, because City drop points and it puts them within 1 point of the title race, and they've got to play Liverpool. Liverpool and City have got to play each other later on in the. I think it's one more game, and then they play each other. So there's all the incentive for Liverpool to go for it. But if we go for the hypothetical that Gabriel's out, there is only. I'm not bringing Tomiyasu back into this. I just think it'll be rushed again, and there's just no point. So the only alternative is, can we get Saliba back for a day or something? Like, I don't know. I don't want to play Holding, but you know what? Yeah, back the lad. Come on, Souls, you can do this. Yeah, we'll have to play that guy. We'll have to play Holding. I mean, he's got a hair transplant. Maybe it's a new man born, and he's some colossal, centre back that we need. So let's just hope. But yeah, I don't know what else we could do.
But yeah, let's not freak out just yet, because like I said, the last time that this guy kind of reported that a player was out, it ended up being so normal. Like he was out because of sponsorship duties. And he also prefaced this by saying, his wife is 9 months pregnant. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what it was. And I would still imagine that if she did go into labor, unless there was any complications, that he would probably still play tomorrow. I mean, Pepe played. And we need Gabrielle. We need you, buddy. So I know it's rough, but unless there's complications, man, I
You
mean,
could
need
have
you to play.
another kid. You could have
Yeah,
another
it's
kid,
like
but you can't have another game.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, the only thing about if he was out, that immediately puts us into a deeper block. Jasper says deep block holding is a demon. Yeah, I think that would immediately push us back, but ultimately we're going to be pushed back a little bit anyway because I think Liverpool is going to have a lot of possession. So, I'm not really going to be worrying about this too much at the moment because ultimately I want to hear it from somebody who's a little bit more reliable, no offense to him, that he's actually out. You know what I mean? He just wasn't in training. Other than that, it seems like everybody but Tomiyasu is ready to go. And I was listening to the Arscast today, and basically, James Gunner blog was saying that it's Tomiyasu's injury to this calf injury that he has now is just as severe as the first one. So even though the club is kind of playing it down, it is a significant injury right after another significant injury. I know that we're afraid to see Cedric versus Diaz, but I kind of feel like we're just gonna have to suck it up, right? There's no point with all the difficult games that we have coming up. If we have an opportunity for Tomiyasu to come in, let's say against Brighton or Crystal Palace, wouldn't we prefer that than rush him back in now and have him potentially not only get burnt, but get beat up and be out again for what? A potential. I mean, we're probably. I mean, I hate to say this, you guys. Even though I think we could get something, there's a big probability that we could lose this match anyway. So what do you think about Tomiyasu, and does he have to play tomorrow? You know?
Nah, for me, no. It's not even about the whole sort of. For me, the game doesn't change. The only thing that changes is if we win, because I still don't think our top four hopes are gone just because we lose this game or draw this game. Obviously, if we win it, it just accelerates it. But for me, that's the reason I wouldn't risk him. But if we then start dropping points against Brighton, Crystal Palace, even Villa, just because we decided to play Tomiyasu, that's just worse. Like we could be dropping more points, and so it's just for me. I don't know. I just don't risk it. There's no point. It's not a game that we app. It's not like it's the last game of the season. We need 3 points. He'll have like a couple of months off or something. It's in the dire ends of the season. It's in the if he gets injured again, then yeah, we just have to hope Cedric doesn't get injured now, because if he then gets injured, then we've got to play Ben White at right back and bring Holding into the centre back, and it starts to cause this whole mess that we've seen before. So for me, just don't risk it. And to be honest, as much as I think Cedric will get cooked, he's more match fit. He's much more sharper in terms of just match fitness.
He's getting
He's more
cooked.
ready. He's getting cooked, but he's more ready. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing it as we bring Tomiyasu back, risk an injury, but he's gonna get cooked because he's not ready. Or do we just play the guy that might just surprise us because he is more match fit? I don't think it's gonna happen, but miracles can happen. So who knows? Cedric
Mm-hmm.
could turn into Roberto Carlos for us. So that's all I'm hope. I can only hope. I can only hope at this
I'm
point.
just
But
like, whatever, man. Because I know it. I mean, the way Harvey Barnes kind of had him on toast, it's kind of like, yeah. And Harvey Barnes is levels below what Liverpool have in that front line, but I'm equally still not super worried about it. I'm kind of like, okay, we'll see. We'll see it when it happens. But that being said, Saswat makes an interesting point saying that one thing I noticed about Liverpool in their game against Inter was how they struggled against sharp turns. Brozovic had a little trouble bypassing the midfield, With our flair, we need to exploit that. And this kind of leads nicely into the conversation around how do we not repeat the same mistakes that we had in the first 3 times that we played them? How do we exploit the few weaknesses that Liverpool have? How is it that we really struggle to create clear-cut chances against them? But I've seen teams that are nowhere near as good as us, be able to score goals against them. It feels like Liverpool have our number, but there has to be a way where we can be truly competitive against this team, creating chances, putting them under threat, and not just getting blown away. I almost throw away the game that we drew against them 0-0 because we went down to 10 men and we sat in a deep block. I'm really looking at the 4-0 and the 2-0, two games where they were very, very different. Where the 4-0, we had Sambi and Tavares, and at the start of the second half, they got really like jittery and shaky, and we just kind of got ran through. The second one was kind of, we didn't have our midfield and all of that. Is it just a case of we didn't have our best team out there, and if we did, we'd be all right? Or is there something else there? How do we get something? That's my question.
I think we're going into this game with confidence and potential. Well, let's just say Gabriel is here, so we're going with pretty much our strongest 11 other than Tomiyasu. But I think one position you're always going to have an injury here and there, so we shouldn't be overly like, oh my god, we didn't have this, so that's why we lost. And we've got our midfield, to put the cherry on the top. And one of the things is we've got different types of options in attack now, because I do think we're going to start with Martinelli to break the high line, to press him behind. But if that's not working, we've got a bit of technical flair in ESR to come on. If that doesn't work, you've still got Pepe. So we do have a few options and goal threats just to bring off the bench. That's number two. And I think, with the way Partey especially, he's going to be crucial because he's going to, it was funny because I was watching and actually reading on the comments that Arteta made, and he got asked, "Are you going to have any tactical surprises for tomorrow?" And the way he answered that, I was like, "Oh, you better flipping not," because he was like, "Well, you'll have to wait and see tomorrow." And I was like,
No,
"Don't do anything." I
don't
was
do
like, "Just don't
it.
do anything." But
I'm
if
so
if I'm
scared
if I'm
now.
looking at it, I'm looking at Partey has to be solid in the base, protect that front line like he has been doing, and just keep Xhaka far, far, far away from needing to make a tackle because he ain't going to get a red card then. So we're going to have 11 men on the pitch. But in all seriousness, I think it's going to be Odegaard and Partey pulling the strings in this game. I know people look at Bukayo Saka as being. I'm not saying they're not important, but if Odegaard and Partey drop a stinker, it doesn't matter what Saka does because he ain't going to get the ball. He's not going to get them in positions he'd like. He'd have to come deep and help out, and that's not what we want. We want him running in behind. We want Martinelli running in behind, and that's the reason why I'd say I'd start them too, to be running in behind, exploiting the high line. And because of like sort of their work rate, especially Martinelli, he's just like a bulldog off a leash. I remember Reece Nelson scored against Van Dijk that way. He pressed Van Dijk into a mistake, and then we scored. So they, as good as Liverpool are, they can be pressed into mistakes. And
Yeah.
I like the comment before. Their midfield isn't as athletic, or well, it depends on who they play, but not all of them are athletic. So it's
Yeah.
just about being switched on, I guess. That's the key to it all, and just playing with the confidence. Go in there and don't show too much. I think what we do is show a bit too much respect. Yes, show respect and acknowledge that they're better than you, but don't just start then timming away just because they took a shot on you or they broke you one time or they ripped you apart. It's the Watford Leicester mentality. Like, okay, you got a wake up call, but keep going. You've got to keep going, and that for me is going to be the crucial. And that's the big difference. Like from the City game, we've looked different. Our mentality is different. We're taking games on, and it's about belief really. And I think that's the key. It's the belief that even if we go 1-0 down, the game's not over. We've still got this, and go with it.
Yeah.
Like,
The one thing that I will say is that my main concern is they're going to press us like they always do. So we're not going to be able to play out of the back. I would prefer us not to be stupid and just play out of the back. And what they tend to like to do to us is press us so that we kick it long. And then our front players just don't even put up a fight. They get every single second ball, and then it becomes waves and waves and waves of pressure in that way. And we have to solve that issue. I think the biggest mistake that we can make is hoofing the ball forward to Lacazette. He is not going to be able to battle Van Dijk and, let's say, Matip for, any sort of possession through the center of the pitch. It's just not going to happen. And he's also going to have probably somewhat of a role sitting on Thiago as well, trying to make sure if Thiago, no, is Thiago injured? Is he injured again? I think he is. So it
He
wouldn't
was for the
be
final, but I don't know if he's back.
happily eggs. Can you let us know? Is Thiago injured or no? But Lacazette usually does really well for us when we're playing against big teams, sitting on one of their pivots or central defensive midfielder to make sure that they just don't get easy possession. But ultimately, when we're trying to play out of the back, I think Ramsdale to Gabriel Martinelli is going to be the outlet, because I would take Gabriel Martinelli versus Trent Alexander-Arnold every single day of the week. I think that is going to be their weaker side. I'm not saying Liverpool are weak. I'm saying that would I rather us be kicking it to Saka against Andy Robertson? I think he's a much better defender than Trent. And we could probably catch Trent out when he's trying to go forward. So I would think that's our outlet, is on the left-hand side, big space in behind, Gabriel Martinelli one-on-one versus Trent Alexander-Arnold, and we try to catch them out that way. But if we don't go for second balls, if we're not aggressive on and off the ball, like, we're going to get ran over. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how we play. If we have that same level of aggression that we had against Man City, I think we can do something. But if we don't, we're finished. And my other question is, how do we keep Odegaard from getting marked out of the game? Because if they've been watching us, which they probably have, they're going to say, okay, you stop this guy, you stop everything. And if we buy, like, I can easily see him getting marked out of the game. So what do we do in that instance? Where does the creativity come from if they swarm around Odegaard? What do we do then?
I think that's where Xhaka then needs to step up. Unfortunately, it's not the midfield name that you want to hear, but just because Partey will be playing the deeper role, I know he comes forward a bit as well, but predominantly he's sitting in the base of midfield, so it's going to be hard for him to create space for Odegaard. But one of the things that went very under the radar, but I kind of noticed it when I watched the Leicester game back, is how Xhaka creates space for other players just because of where he is. And I know Pereira's kind of lost it since his injury, but when you see it, Pereira was always in two minds every time Martinelli got the ball, because there was Xhaka there, and he was like, will he pass it to Xhaka? What will Xhaka do? And he was all constantly like sort of in two minds and stuck in two zones. So I think if Odegaard was to get kind of marked out of the game, that's where I think Odegaard then needs to be able to go wide and allow Saka in and just change things and just interchange with the players, because it causes issues. Because if you're trying to mark a player out, the worst thing you want is that player to not be where you expected them to be, and so create false runs. And that's why there's a part of me that thinks this is where Cedric could be good for us, because you're going to cause too many wide overloads with, Cedric going in behind, overlapping. You've got Saka there. That's going to be very difficult. That's why Saka was suffering at the start of the season, because every team was like, we don't really need to worry about anyone but Saka. So they had the luxury of 2 players, 3 players, because they didn't think anyone else was a threat. Aubameyang wasn't scoring, Lacazette doesn't score, and Odegaard wasn't Odegaard, and then Xhaka and Partey wasn't having a great time. But now the problem that Klopp is going to have is, how do we stop Partey? How do we stop Odegaard? How do we stop Saka? Then we also need to keep an eye on Martinelli. So the problem is they've not got enough luxuries to double team, triple team a single player. So that's why I'm not too sure whether they have the ability to man mark, because it's no longer a one dependency. It's many players that they're going to have to spread their defense across. So if they were to, it's about other players creating the space and taking players away, or becoming more effective. And Saka's got the ability to create. And as soon as he does 1 or 2 things, the intention will move away from other players. So that's the key, is players need to just take their responsibilities to help create space.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely different than we were the last time that we played them. We were different every single time that we played them, because we never had the players that we needed. we were just kind of, and still working through getting to this place where we're playing really good football, attacking football. I don't think we started to really attack the way that we are now until like mid-December. So I get the aspect of like we're a different team now. Reggie says, Jess, remember before we didn't have those triangles going to prevent Odegaard from getting marked out. We have to pass and move continuously, and passing the ball quickly and being decisive on the ball is going to be important, because one thing you can't do is pretend like you have time and space against Liverpool. They're going to shut you down. They're going to press you off the ball. They're going to put body on you. So we need to be confident in what we're doing and be decisive. And so the passing is going to have to be crisp, with, I don't know, it's just going to have to be kind of like what we've been doing, but also do it, against a very high level team. It's going to be a very difficult match. Something that has been brought up after the last two matches was about Martinelli and Bukayo Saka, and their shot selection and being a little bit more unpredictable. Because when I rewatched the Leicester game, I did think that there were times where they just shot it into ankles and feet. And it was kind of like a better defender is going to just say every single, because they're both inverted wingers. So they both want to come in on that inside foot, right? So is that the next step in their progression, is to not just be so predictable? I'm going to cut it in on my left and shoot. I'm going to cut it on my right and shoot, to make it more difficult for the defender to predict what they're trying to do. Because they're such good players, but really, if we get it down to them, they have to make the most out of the few chances that we may get. And if they're kicking it into ankles and shins, we're not going to get anything out of it.
100%. I think Saka is probably I'm less worried about, because his right foot's gotten a lot better, and he scored at least 2 or 3 goals off the top of my head with his right foot, and he's using it more to even cross the ball. So he's probably less, I'm worried. But Martinelli, yeah, because he's a very head down, doesn't really look up to see what's actually going on. His decision making isn't perfect. And we know that he's not really a traditional winger. He's more of a striker that's playing out wide. So we're kind of expecting the decision making not to be there, but he just needs to get his head up and understand the game a bit more, read the game a bit more, and I feel that a lot of those problems are solved. But when he gets the ball, he's not really looking up. He's looking down at the ball and running. And I'm like, well, how do you know where anyone is? You're either going to cross into empty space or shoot without really knowing where you're shooting. So I think with him, it's just a tweak of how he runs or how he sees the game, and we may just see a different decisions being made. But yeah, it's not. For me, the shots have been okay, typically over the season. But yeah, that Leicester game, I was like, why are you shooting? You're being very greedy. And that's why I even said about, when we did the player ratings, where I was like, with Xhaka, I go, he could have passed it off to ESR. And I go, it's not a problem now because we're 2-0 up, but it would have been a problem if it was 0-0. And I'm guessing they make different decisions at different parts of the game. But for me, it's just we need to see better decision making first. And I think that would solve them shoot. Because I think Saka just didn't. I don't know if he was desperate for a goal, or he saw other people scoring, so he was like, I need to score. I don't know what it was, but it was definitely an off shooting game for them.
Yeah, I just worry because obviously Trent and Van Dijk and Matip and Andy Robertson are much superior to the defenders that they've been playing against for the last couple of games. And I saw kind of like this cut in and shoot with my better foot or my strong foot or whatever. And it's very predictable. So they need to vary it. Sometimes go to the touchline, sometimes, pass it into somebody else. That's my only thing about them, because if we get limited opportunities, you can't be shooting it into shins. And I do remember when we went to Anfield, we did have some opportunities, very few in the final third. And I remember Saka doing some similar things where he just hesitated a little bit and just shot it into Van Dijk's shins. And it's like, we have to be smarter. But I'm not putting pressure either. I know they're young. And so I get that. But it's something to just take note of, really. Jordan shippers, welcome back. Hope school is going well. I just couldn't imagine being at school again. Like my brain is like mush. It's short. Says we have no chance, no tomorrow. I'm sorry to say. Yeah, fair enough. Sasquatch says Vinicius versus Trent flashbacks. Let's go, Gabby. I mean, I think Vinicius is kind of like a combination of Martinelli and Saka. Really, when I watch him play, I just think those our players are similar to him, but he's further along in his progression. So you can get out the back line. They do leave gaps, but ultimately, if you're not clinical or you make stupid decisions, they will punish you on the other end. That's what makes Liverpool really, really scary. So yeah, let's go ahead and build our lineup. You guys make sure that you smash the likes. Let me share my screen. Let me share my screen. All right, so here we go. Now, people are asking about a back three. Here's my take. I don't want to see us really modify our game. I think our best chance of winning or getting anything from the game is playing our game. I don't necessarily feel like bunkering down and going on the counterattack is going to give us any sort of advantage in this matchup. We're at home. We kind of need to use that to our advantage. And we had the same thought process against Man City. Well, why don't we play a back three? Why don't we do this? Our game stood up to Man City on that day. We just made stupid decisions. So I think I just want to go with the usual, what we usually do. But do you think there's any point in moving to a back three stroke back five to mitigate some of the, I guess, pressure that we're going to be under against Liverpool?
No, because then you're sacrificing another element of your game. Who do you leave out? Odegaard, Xhaka, or Partey, or do you leave one of the attacking players out? Like that's then what you do because you're not going to be able to have everyone. And for me, at the moment, we've got a good feel factor for the way we're playing, the system that we're playing, and if we keep changing it just because the opponent's a bit difficult, how are we ever going to improve? And also, if we want to move forward, how do we know what's actually wrong with our team to fix? And if we go into a back three and it shows like, oh, we can actually be competitive, then what do we do?
No, sure.
Ah, yeah, he's the old Gabriel. So yeah, no, for me, keep it the same. Keep, because for me, this is a very good test to see what we need. What is the missing links? What's that midfield gonna look like? Do we need a six? Do we need that Xhaka modified role? Like, what do we need? So, nah, keep everything as it is and just believe in your system.
So one thing that's been talked about quite a bit, I brought it up, and it's been brought up on several other podcasts as well, is Granit Xhaka playing in this modified role where he's a little bit further forward, and I know a lot of people prefer him further forward because that means that he's further away from making mistakes closer to our goal, but I've seen several times teams target that side and target the space in behind Xhaka. Do you think it's important for Xhaka to maybe be a little bit more conservative tomorrow and almost play like the double pivot again to make sure that we don't get exposed in on that side?
Yeah, that question's been like
Is
rattling my brain.
tomorrow the game to do that, basically?
Yeah, that's been rattling my brain a lot because they are scary, especially their right hand side, and that makes our left hand side. And in Salah and Trent, that's where the overloads are going to be. So it's
Mhm.
going to be too much for Taney to probably handle. So I would like Xhaka to help. I mean, that comes with very big reservations in terms of what can happen. He can easily get himself booked a few times. Get that little stupid red card, but it's needed because we don't really have um like Martinelli is not going to be able to. He's not that great defender. Yeah, he's a good presser, but he's not a good defender. So you need someone who's got the physicality to help out and to stop crosses and to stop the overlaps. So I'd say yes for this game, but then against sort of the not so good teams, you can modify him again and make him play forward. But I'd want him to help out in defence. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah. I mean, there's been times when we've played this lesser opposition and been able to push Xhaka forward where he's lost the ball or we've lost the ball on that side and they literally blew right past him and drove into the pocket of space in behind him and there was no way for him to recover. Sometimes it left Tierney exposed. It left that area exposed. And if that's Jota and Salah and Mane and in those types of players running towards your back line, I think you're in a lot of trouble. So for me, I really do think in this particular match, as much as we like Xhaka being a little bit more further forward, I think he needs to play more similarly to the way that he played before in the double pivot, just so we don't get exposed on that side and we're a little bit pick and choose our moments to attack. Don't just we've put our defense under more pressure than we usually do to kind of defend on their own and defend one-on-one and just snuff out danger. But I just don't think you can do that against a team of Liverpool's caliber. I think it's going to get exposed. I know they're looking at that Cedric and the space in behind Xhaka, and we can't do anything about Cedric, but what we can do is stop Xhaka from going so far forward. And it's also a position that he's a lot more comfortable in. And I think the more comfortable he is, the less likely is to get a red card or do something silly, right?
100%, but I'd take the gamble. I'm gonna be honest, like, because I don't know, like, it's tough because you don't want a red card. You'd rather him just be up forward, like if he's gonna get a red card. But I just think we need to. This is one of those games where yeah, you need to make a tweak at the moment, until you can get that player in, who can do a bit of both, who can be a true box to box going forward, coming in back, and such as Awaz or your De Jongs, even Basuma could play a role like that for us and do very well. It just depends on kind of what type of modified eight or a true number eight you want that can play on that side. So um, yeah, for me, has to help out defensively. Tierney's not that great in my opinion. Not against, especially not when Salah and Trent are going to overlap. Like you don't want Gabriel to be coming out and just leaving Ben White and Cedric. If it was Tomiyasu, I'd be like, yeah, you can kind of get away with things because you've got two basically centre backs who can clear the ball. Cedric's just too small, like, and Ben White can't do everything on his own. And then you don't want Gabriel being dragged out wide, to help out. So you may as well use your best option, which is Xhaka doing that. So for me, it's worth the gamble to just bring him deep.
Do you see Arteta doing anything funky because we have a game coming up against Aston Villa that's totally winnable? Do you see him doing anything? Do you see him just going with the status quo or maybe modifying things a little bit, like almost as if this is a European tie that we know we're not going to win, but our next game in the league is very winnable? Is it likely that we could play Lacazette in 3 games running? Is it likely that we could play Xhaka 3 games running in 6 days? Could we see a little change? Or do you think this is what we're going to see? And if it breaks down, then so be it.
I think this is the game we'll see this. I think when we
Mhm.
talk about the Villa game, yeah, I think that's when he may. But then again, we've got like a bit of a. I don't even know if it's an international break, but there's a break. We're not playing the weekend after. Well, actually, none of the Premier League are playing the weekend after. So I don't know. It'd be interesting, but the thing is, like, they should be more than capable of playing 3 games once in a very long time. I think they're more than capable, but I don't think this is the game where Arteta will do something. If he was to, he'd probably rotate, let's say, Saka or Martinelli for Pepe against Villa. Maybe give Lacazette a rest. I don't know, but I don't see him doing it for this game because he may see this as a tester. But whereas with Villa, you can actually beat them even if you play a Pepe or an ESR or El Neni Lokonga, whoever, you can still beat Villa. Whereas with this game, you need your best 11 to even have a chance at anything. And even when you read his press conference, it looks like they're both going for it. So I don't see it. But then again, it is Mikel Arteta. Who knows? no one knows his brain. I don't know
I
what
know
dream.
nobody knows.
Yeah,
That's
we
what
don't
I'm
know what
saying. Like,
dream revelation Pep might have FaceTimed and said, you know what, this is what you're gonna need to do. So who knows? Who really knows?
yeah, because we do know that when we did play in Europe last season, there were games where we started, Pepe. There were games that we rotated after a big European game. In the next game in the league, even though it was an important game, we rotated. So I don't know. I will. Yo, now I'm like, is Arteta gonna galaxy brain this? Like, what is he about to do? Because we have seen him this season. He hasn't done it so much because there was no need to. Now I wonder if he's like 3 games, 6 days, got to keep these guys sharp. It's Liverpool, do something funky. But at the same time, I've never seen Arteta take a game lightly, if that makes sense. Like overly rotate, leave your best players on the bench. Never seen that from him. So if anything, I could just see something weird, like all 3 kids start up top and Lacazette doesn't play. That's something
I
that I
wouldn't
could
be
think.
against that, to be honest. I won't lie. I know it sounds a bit mad, but I wouldn't mind Martinelli up top and ESR coming in, just because then you've got Odegaard and ESR who can drop deep. But
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't think this is the game to do it. Just do it against Villa. Try it out there if you need to.
But
But
you can't try anything out against Villa because we have to win that game. That is the game that we will
Would,
100%
all right, would you? All right,
team
would you be
this.
annoyed? All right, would you be annoyed if we lost to Liverpool, but Arteta tried something, or would you be like, you know what, we are gonna lose anyway, so it doesn't really
No,
matter?
yeah,
Or
if he tried something in this game, like so this is all contingent on the fact that against we win, we beat Aston Villa, right?
right, okay,
Like we
okay.
have to beat Aston Villa. But let's say at the end of the day, he tried something against Liverpool. It didn't quite work out. We lost. We were competitive, but we lost. And then we turned around and went back to status quo, beat Aston Villa. Sure, I'd be okay with that. I wouldn't really mind that. For me, this is a free hit. So I'm not really like out here like we need to win this. Like we have to win this. I want to get something out of it, but I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow the lineup looked slightly different because we have 3 games in 6 days and we have some options that we could use. That being said, I mean, who knows? Who knows with Arteta, really?
Yeah,
So,
this is the first game in a long time. I'm like, I don't know. Like, you know, remember when we did that like sort of 5, 6, or set whatever the set was, it 7 game prediction? And I was like, yeah, I expect full points except Liverpool because I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen against Liverpool. I still feel the same. I don't feel any more confident. I'm just like, I have no idea what to expect from this game. I don't know what the lineup's gonna be, and it's like the first time I felt this way. It's weird.
yeah, it is weird. It's very weird. I just want to see us play our way
Mm.
and be super competitive. I haven't seen us like even do they score, then we score, then they score, then we score. It's very much a one way thing with Liverpool against us. Like the only time we've ever been there's only been really 2 times, and that was in, like, the Carabao Cup last like, 2 seasons ago, I think, and it was 5-5, and we went out
Oh
on
yeah,
penalties,
yeah.
but it was, like, the kids were playing, and then the time that they were on the beach and we beat them 2-1. But other than that, when things were on the line and it mattered, we just don't do well against them, and I wanna see it this time regardless of the score line. But how do you expect the game to go, and what do you think the score line is gonna be?
Oof. I don't know. I think we're gonna concede quite early. They're gonna probably get a quick goal because we just weren't switched on, and I reckon that's going to be the wake up call that turns the tide. I'm going to stick to it because I've said it all along. And even though I'm not confident, this is more coming out of a place of dreaming and hoping. And just because I really I want something out of this game. And this is the first game I've gone into. Like, I'm a bit like nervy and I don't know why, because even though we're seeing it as a free hit, I'm
You
still
gotta
like,
whisper it. You can't be out here saying that out
well, it's
loud.
just a free. It's a hit that doesn't matter in it. You know, like Yeah, and
Exactly.
some may call it a free hit, but we're not calling it that. It's just like, it don't matter in it. And so yeah, no, do you know what? Fuck it.
Nacho.
Let's go for it. Let's go for it. Full send. 2-1. We're gonna concede early, and then guess what's gonna happen? We're gonna just hit them twice, where it hurts. And yeah, I'm gonna go for it. I don't even care at this point. Let's go. It's what's the worst that's gonna happen? We lose, but I'm gonna go for it. 2-1. We're gonna beat them. It's gonna finally happen. And you know what? And Arteta's gonna be the one to get the second assist. He's gonna do the throwing himself this time. He's not gonna give it to Saka. He's actually gonna do the throwing himself and give it to Lacazette. And Lacazette's gonna score in the 97th minute because some madness is gonna happen in the game, and we're gonna get 8 minutes added on. Yeah, let's just go fantasy land on this one and go 2-1.
It's a hit with no cost. Love it. That's
Oh
exactly
yeah,
what it
yeah.
is. A hit with no cost. So yeah, Blaze says, I don't think Arteta will change the team tomorrow because he doesn't trust the players like Pepe and Nketiah to start them in a big game against Liverpool. Yeah, sure. I mean, fair enough.
Was it Pepe like the last guy to score for us against Liverpool, or was it someone else?
Who?
I'm sure Pepe was the last player to score against Liverpool for us.
When's the last time we scored against them? In the
Wasn't it
Community
like
Shield?
2-1 when they were on the beach? Because I can't
Oh,
remember.
no. Last season,
Lacazette scored, didn't he?
Lacazette.
3-1.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3-1.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Lionide says that free hit is not an AFC expression. Be careful. Look, when I say it's a free hit, what I mean is that it's one of our games in hand. So, like, if we weren't to get any points from it, it would not be the end of the world. Like, if we don't do well against Aston Villa, Crystal Palace, and Brighton, which are like our next couple of games. That's all I'm saying. When I say I'm not saying that. So it's totally okay if we're not competitive or whatever, but I can't help but feel like they have our number. When they turn up the heat, we can't really cope with it until I see us cope with it in a way that kind of how we did against Man City. I'm kind of always going to predict that we're not going to do well against them, but equally because it's not going to cost us anything in terms of us trying to get to top 4. It's kind of like just go out there, do as good as you can. Like, we just want to see our team do well. So yeah, I get that we kind of went too far with the whole free hit thing earlier on in the season. When we were talking about the earlier Liverpool match and all that kind of stuff. But when I say it, it's not the same as when other people are saying it. Like, you guys know, I don't think it's okay for us to just go into every big game and just be uncompetitive.
Yeah, I don't want them to just go there and sit down and get smacked like 6-0. But
and I expect us to try to win the game. That's the thing. But you can be trying to win the game and still lose. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
that's it. You got to at least. It's like that City game we lost, but in a way we're proud of the team. Like we're like, okay, you did what we needed you to do. You were competitive. At most of that game, we felt like we were going to get something out, or we should have gotten something out of it. Whereas with Liverpool, we've always felt flipping out. It could have been 6-0, and that's the problem. That's what we don't want to. We want to be feeling like even if we lose, like we could have gotten something out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Tony says, just don't get snowballed. I mean, that's a big thing. And also, I mean, it's really important for us to make a good account of ourselves, regardless of what is the final result, because you don't want to go into the Aston Villa game. I mean, Aston Villa for me are a good upper mid-table side. You know, they have enough players there that can hurt you. They have a coach that knows what they're doing, and they're going to be coming off of the back of a loss against West Ham, which is a very tight game. So you don't want to go into that game after getting smashed by Liverpool. Like, you know what I mean? You really want to make sure you make a good account of yourself. And that's really all I expect from this match. I'm never going to go out there and say, I expect us to beat Man City and Liverpool. Those are the only 2 teams in this league that I would never expect us to beat them, like, in our current form right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I would just hope that, you know, we do well and maybe get something out of it. You know what I mean? But we do have to put in somewhat of a performance, because you just don't want to leave there with that stinky feeling of like, ooh, we got ripped. Going into some really important games, you know. Sasquatch says Pep dancing, FaceTime appearing on in the stadium billboard after the Teta assist. Oh my gosh, like yeah, I know they were on the phone to each other, and I know Pep was just like, "Oh, Mikel, do you think you can do something against Liverpool? Do you think you can do something? Do you think?" Like, and Mikel was probably like, "Nah, man, you're asked out, buddy."
Unless you can give us like De Bruyne, unless you get, Diaz unknown to us, then yeah, we might be cooking. But
Yeah, exactly. And
oh,
Jasper puts it.
Cancelo, actually Cancelo, that'll be fine. Just give us Cancelo, we'll be fine.
Jasper says our season won't be judged based on this game. I think that's what she means. Yeah, it's hard to explain because, like, as an Arsenal fan, you should always, like, because of where we come from, the expectation is to like win every single game. But I always judge my expectations on every single game based on where we are in our progression right now, not the history of the club. And the history of the club and where we are right now are starting to get a lot closer. So the expectations are starting to change. It's no longer just, oh, we got blown out, that's cool. Like, it's not. You know what I mean? And it never really was cool. Let's see. Captain Joker says Arsenal will win our next 2 games. That would be. I mean, what if we did win? Let's just play fantasy just for like 1 minute. Like, if we did win, how unbearable are we going to be? The only thing I would say is that beating Liverpool means nothing if you turn right around and show your ass against Aston Villa. That's all I'm going to say. But what if we did win? What you saying? Like, what if we did win?
Oh, fam, I'm going police station for like being too loud and disruptive and like disturbing the peace. Because fam, I'm gonna be unbearable. I'm gonna be screaming the house down because that would be too much to handle. And for me, that you know what? If we win, it starts to show what we're trying to do, and it, for me, accelerates the sort of excitement of everything. And but then it could be the same old Arsenal going and dropping points to Villa. Like it, then there's no point of this. So for me, it's like yeah, I'll be excited in the moment, but if we then go beat Villa, I'll be like, right, we're on to something here because that's 7 games on the bounce where we've got maximum points. That to me is like, what more can you ask for? The most informed team, we've already averaged 1.9 to 2 points per game since, sort of last season. And we know we're going to add quality to this team. So for me, it'll just be exciting because there's no reason for Liverpool to not go for it. Because normally it's like, oh, but they won the league already. They couldn't be invincible, so
They're
they
coming.
didn't play. All of this, but they're coming for this game. Like even if you look at Klopp's comments, about this game,
They were
there's
like, he was like, Arsenal are good, but we're gonna be ready. And I was like,
yeah,
ah!
exactly. So like if you can beat that, if you can beat that motivated Liverpool, like it is exciting. It's like oh my god, because it's not like they're pulling back the punches. No, they're coming to knock us out basically.
Literally, like the moment that City dropped those points, I was like, this is the
Yeah,
second
we're getting
time
spanked in
that you
it. We're getting
guys
spanked.
messed us over. The first one was when they lost to Spurs, and now this one. Because, I mean, the thing about Liverpool that I think is different than City is that I think they're better under pressure. I think City sometimes can buckle, kind of like they did against Crystal Palace. I think Liverpool are going to rise to the occasion and be very, very difficult to beat because they're going to smell blood. We'll see. We'll see how it goes, you guys. But my score prediction is actually going to be, I don't even know. I'm going to go for a 1-1. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm hoping that we get something from it. I don't want to predict a loss. So I'm going to go for a 1-1. But it's going to be tough. Like I could see us like giving up an early goal and then getting a really scruffy penalty and then sitting in a low block and just saying, we got the point. Like just move on. Like, you know what I mean?
Right, we're both saying an early conceded goal. That's mad.
Yeah, I do think they're going to come out really, really fired up, and it might take us by surprise. But we need the Emirates to be bouncing. We need the team, like we need to be behind the team, and make it difficult for Liverpool to live there, really. And the little fire between Arteta and Klopp, I don't think is quite gone. I expect an early Mane elbow to some Cedric's eye tomorrow, like, I
better
fully
get a red
expect it to be
card this
one of
time.
those. But other than that, hopefully, like, it just, I don't know, man. I don't know. But let's see. 3-1 to the Arsenal, says Stefan. Lionite says Mane red carded for elbowing. He's like never red carded for
Yeah,
anything.
exactly.
The Pro Hobbit says if Liverpool completely dominate, it's not the end of the world. Everyone knows they're monsters. I mean, Man City and Liverpool are quite literally the two best teams in the world. Like, they just are. Like, the best teams in the world exist in the league that we play in. So when we're playing against City and we're playing against Liverpool, we're not playing against the two best teams in the league. We're playing against the two best teams in the world. So it's gonna be hard. But I'm kind of excited a little bit. I don't know why. I won't feel that way in the morning. Lionite says, I think it'll be a great game from both sides, hopefully. Let's see. iGamer says if we beat Pool and lose to Villa, I wouldn't be mad because we would have been coming off 6 straight. True. I mean, that's a good way to think about it, even though I cannot stomach losing to Emmy Martinez, Emmy Buendia, and Steven Gerrard. It's just not happening for me. We need to beat them. Like, just saying. So yeah, but let's go ahead and get out of here. Just a quick, preview after the Man United Laugh Fest. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow, there will be player ratings following the game. Obviously, me and Souls, sometimes me, every single time, sometimes Souls does the football tears before we come here. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully, we're talking about a good result and a good performance, at least a good performance. Yeah, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Make sure that you follow Souls at Gunnar Souls and me on Twitter at Jacinho Tweets. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Like the video on your way out. Bye, guys.